Buddy, welcome to 6 of the Thoughtium Navigating Now virtual roundtable series. I am Anthony Ewing, CEO and founder here at Thoughtium. We are so excited to be here every Thursday at 3 o'clock. We go live to YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We particularly want to thank our LinkedIn community. We've been growing our LinkedIn Live community over the course of the last several years. Every Thursday, we bring leaders with leadership topics that matter most. The conversation has really evolved over the course of the last three and a half years and 136 episodes. Over the last 3 years, we have had several guests that we have asked back to the table due to their prolific nature in the marketplace, their dynamic and ever-growing businesses, and more importantly, their perspective that just seems to cut through the standard HBR article, if you will. We love to bring new age perspectives to you all from folks that are at the forefront of growing and building their own businesses. And today we have one of our very special and very perennial guests in Christian Zeron. Christian is the founder of LMFNY. He's also the founder and director at Theo and Harris. Christian is an organizer of community, of people of great thought in advertising and marketing. And above anything, I would call Christian one of the better storytellers that has been a part of this show, and one of the better storytellers that are out there bringing great stories and breathing new life into brands unlike any other. And for that, we are super, super excited to bring Christian to the table. Christian, welcome back.
Anthony, what's going on, man? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. You've been on the show a couple times, and we were just talking prior to the show that this is such a great opportunity to catch up with you, your budding career, the businesses that you're building, and the stories that you're telling. So tell us what's new with you over the course of the last 6 or 8 months since the last time we talked.
Yeah, geez, good question. It's such a large question. It's okay. Where do you start? Obviously we launched LMF, about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. It started with, we were doing brand consulting and creative development. So basically short films, commercials for television or Facebook or whatever use for big watch brands, because my first company, Theo and Harris, is in the watch space. So we started there, and then a couple of engagements in, I kind of said, I'm 25. Why am I putting myself in this box of just, the watch world, horology? It makes no sense, right? Sure, that's a great space to be in, but if I've figured it all out at 25, I'm sadly mistaken, right? So I said, okay, let's expand beyond this. Let's use these abilities, these storytelling abilities, to speak in other fields. I needed to do it under a new name, so we started a new company, LMFNY, and we do exactly that for different institutions outside of horology, right? Be it financial institutions, be it sports, leagues, everywhere. Yeah, we're doing it all over. There is no genre or space that we're drawing a line at, right? It's a new challenge, it's a new day, it's an exciting product. And frankly, sometimes if you're a storyteller, right, sometimes the most exciting product is a very boring one, right? You really enjoy saying, oh yeah, you think there's no story here. It's like when they told Eminem nothing rhymed with orange. He's like, oh yeah, I'll show you, man. I'll show you. Yep. I can make it sexy. Mm-hmm. That's what we do, man.
Yeah, and that's it sounds like that's a really healthy stretch for you, somebody who was so deep in a very particular market. And so for those folks that maybe don't know you and your first company, Theo and Harris, which is how you and I got connected, this was a company that was rooted in storytelling in a very specific lane, and that's vintage watches and the watch industry and the watch market. I always knew that watches were the perfect timepiece for storytelling because there's a lot of history in watches, and we've had watches in our family. But tell us why watches were such a great platform for telling stories, and ultimately the success of Theo and Harris.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? So far as a storytelling exercise, watches are great because there are a couple of really strong facets here. And to be good at storytelling in watches, you need to really understand quite a few, I call them elixirs, right? Quite a few different means of storytelling, be it nostalgia, which is something that everyone loves to play with. Everyone loves nostalgia because they think that they're good at it, right? It's something that you can fake. It's something you could fake very well, right? It's something that if you throw a Super 8 filter over a mediocre your ad, people think it's great, and that's not true at all,
Yes.
right? But nostalgia is one, permanence is another. This idea that the watch industry has been dealing with for a long time, that if you're spending $20,000 on a Patek Philippe, for argument's sake, or $30,000, the idea is that this is not yours. You are watching after it for your son. That's a really permanent idea. It's almost egotistical to buy that, because you're saying, son, I will be on you forever, right? There will never be a moment in which you are not, I am not present. That's a big thing, history, of course, history of war, history of conquest, of love, right? All of these different things are involved in watch storytelling. So because I started in watches, I started in a field that you kind of had to figure all these different things out, technical mechanics. It's very difficult. Watches are not easy, but they are a beautiful exercise, and I adore them as a collector. I adore them, but as a businessman, I think I adore them even more. I think I owe them more.
Yeah, and I want to get to some of the stories that you then started to develop and tell around some of the biggest brands in the watch industry. But ultimately, Theo and Harris began as a community, right? It began as kind of a dialogue. So, you're telling stories about these watches. You're bringing people information and knowledge, but you are also developing a platform of dialogue and community of watch lovers, right? So, tell us a little bit more about that.
For sure. I mean, you and I are both very early Gary Vee fans, right? I mean, I grew up I grew up 10 minutes from Wine Library, right? I mean, I grew up in the shadow of Gary Vaynerchuk. I ran into his sister at the mall last week. You know what I mean?
Did you really?
Oh yeah. So she was like my third grade teacher. So one of the things that he always kind of said that really spoke to me as a young entrepreneur was, the only thing you've got is your voice, for better or worse. So you have to speak through that genuinely. It's the only thing you've got. If you pose, if you attempt to give, veteran entrepreneurship advice at 19, no one's going to listen. No one's going to listen. But if you approach it through your voice, and mine at the time, and it's changed. It changes with your perspective and with your experience. But it was energetic, enthusiastic, young entrepreneur, a little irreverent, right? That just love watches. So it resonated with people because it was true and genuine, for better and for worse, right? We've released, Jesus, dude, like 1,000 videos, or maybe more. I don't even know how many videos we've released. Probably more than 1,000. There are so many that I look at and say, "Oh my God, what a kid I was!" And I'm still a kid, but I don't embarrass myself as often as I used to. You look at some of these videos, and I'm like, "Why was I so angry?" What was really, it's just a watch, relax. But when you grow up in front of a camera, basically, I grew up from 19 to 27. I've been on a camera every day, period. And you learn to you speak, and you start to hate yourself a little bit because you're looking at it and say, "Oh God, how horrible." Yeah. And then later on you say, "Wow, this has been a really interesting journey of language," which is how I look at it now. I'm only good at what I do now because I did it wrong every possible way. I mean, I did it every wrong way. So it's got to be good now.
But you built such an incredible brand in Theo and Harris, and even an incredible brand for yourself. You think about storytelling and the way that storytelling would come into the buying and selling of vintage watches. Of course, the watches have a story of their own, but what I've experienced is that you've built quite a story around Theo and Harris, and Theo and Harris is made of not just you, but your family, and certain characters in your family are part of the story. Bringing your community in interesting ways into your YouTube videos or your shorts. So it wasn't just about telling stories about the watch; it was about creating Theo and Harris the story and the community, and that allowed people to really be interested in wanting to join, not just to learn more stories about watches, but to be a part of a larger story, the brand.
Well, there are two things that are going on there. One is when you see a beautiful family, I come from a really beautiful family. You know my family. I'm a very, very lucky man, right? My parents are lovely people. My sisters, we're all really good friends. We're friends, you know?
Yeah.
So to put that on camera, that's a huge asset, right? That is, while maybe, you know, not seemingly related to the watch business on its surface, that is a beautiful thing that people will engage with, watch, give their time to, be it because they envy it, and some do, and that's a beautiful thing, or because, you know, they're learning from it, or maybe it reminds them of their own family. So there was an asset there that I always tried to, you know, to kind of build my community upon, right? This idea of kindness and of familial love and connection. I knew that was maybe the only thing that was enviable about my situation at 19, right? It was because I had a beautiful family. That was it. So you gotta work with what you've got, you know? And shortly thereafter, I realized, well, you know, people will give money to a family business, right? People will be more easily ready to trust a business if they see the way I interact with my father or my mother. And that's really one of the pillars that I built this retail company off of, right? When I pitch marketing, you know, engagements, be it brand work or be it, you know, a commercial, whatever it may be, you know, I'm talking to these marketers, and one of my lines is always, listen, I built myself for retail, right? I am me because we made a bunch of money in actually selling product. We know how to sell product, right? A lot of our competitors, they're marketers. They've never actually made $1 million selling units. You know, they don't even know what that's like. They sell their service to you in the hope that it may sell your product, but they've never actually lived it. So that's a huge, you know, point of trust and recognition when we're dealing with clients. They don't feel like we're just some marketers shilling them shit. They feel like, yeah, these guys, you know, they've done it. They did it for themselves. They'll do it for me.
Yeah.
And
I love that. Yeah. And, you know, the success of Theo and Harris has allowed you over the course of the last few years to engage with brands in new ways, to approach brands with new ideas. And you've had some real success, which is why you started LMF. Part of that transition, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christian, because I've observed this in kind of your approach, was part of that transition was you weren't allowing the market to come to you. You were kind of going to the market. And I know that there were a couple of projects that you did where you were you had identified a brand that you wanted to work with, and you were telling the story before they even asked for it. And I think that is such an interesting technique. And I want you to tell us about that. Like, what is the psychology of that? And also, like, tactically, what were some of the things that you did to demonstrate this value before the brands even knew they needed it?
Our first, you know, few engaged. I've been a young entrepreneur since I've been an entrepreneur. So I know what I know the uphill battle of being young. You know, there's a lot of skepticism there. No one wants to be the marketing director that signed over money to a kid, right? That's been a problem. That's been something in my life since I'm 19, right? I mean, no one wants to buy a Rolex from a kid, right? So since then, since I was 19, I've had to figure out ways to solidify our reputation, to build our portfolio. Right. So the idea is, well, if we're trusted by Omega and by Longines, by all these big brands, these billion-dollar brands, if you don't think you can trust me, you're saying something about Omega. You know, that's it. It's validated. Right. So I would stop at nothing to get that deal done. I mean, I lost money on my first several engagements, not at LMF, but at Theo and Harris before we parlayed into LMF. Lost money, hemorrhaged money. Right. Because I knew, like, I'm buying a portfolio, right? I'm not begging for the chance. I'm taking it. And whether the brand appreciates it or not, which they ultimately did, but even if they don't, everyone else is going to say, you know, wow, Omega trusted them. That's amazing. You know, and it happened to work out. But even if it didn't, it was a very, you know, fake it till you make it kind of situation. You know, we weren't pretending to be good at marketing. We were pretending that we already got the green light. You know what I mean?
Pretending that you could plug into the system. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, you know,
we forced our way in.
Yeah, I want to ask you for maybe a specific example of like that type of approach. I mean, I was going through a lot of your films, your short films that you've done for brands. One of the earlier ones that I remember was the open letter to Breitling, which was just one of my favorite. Brutal. That was like one of my favorite pieces of content, man.
Yeah.
Where you essentially got on and you deconstructed the marketing process in front of a potential client and said, hey, like you might be going in the wrong direction here.
Yeah.
That takes bravado. It takes confidence, but at the same time, it also takes knowing who you are and what you can offer. So I would love to hear like what is an example of where you've had to kind of apply this like proactive bravado and almost show a brand the way before they sign on the dotted line.
For sure. First of all, that open letter to Breitling, which I agree, I think that was a smart letter. I thought it was a video, but I thought that was smart. It was really a pitch to everyone else watching. Yeah, that was an LMF pitch to every other company, and we sold. We did not huge, but we did very good business off of that video. I mean, it was great. We made good money, right? But not from Breitling. Right? Breitling never reached out. Now, a lot of people from Breitling reached out. A lot of sales managers, a lot of people loved it.
Oh, interesting.
But we never got an executive response, which is fine. I didn't want it. It was okay. But no, that was an ad for everyone else watching, right? That was an ad for everyone with whether it's a small business. When I say small business, you know what I mean. The way that our businesses are small businesses, or maybe a brand executive, right? Maybe someone in a different space, whether it's liquor space or whatever it may be, saying that kid's got balls, man. He seems a little bit like a monster, but I want to make him my monster. That was kind of the idea. I'm an incredibly good soldier, which is very important, but that being said, put me in your ranks, right? Like, we'll do it for you. That was kind of the idea, but yeah, there was a lot of bravado there. I think it's powerful when it's done tastefully and when it's done at the right time. Because generally speaking, when I'm engaging with clients, I know that the bravado is the last thing, right? There's a lot of navigating with when you're an outside agency coming in, and maybe you've experienced this, you never want to be the smartest guy in the room because people will get upset. People, at least I find very often, my job is to make you feel like it's your idea and you're the genius. Even if it's mine, I don't care. I don't need credit. I don't care. It's fine. Just pay your bill and we're good. We're square, But I, in the beginning, really thought, let me come on, let me fix your business for you or help you fix the business. And my dad told me from day one, that was the wrong approach. And he was right. And because people ultimately say, well, if you fix my business, then you're a threat to me. Right. And I didn't get that then. Because as a business owner yourself, I never felt that a day in my life. I feel like if you're going to make me more money, that's great. Come on, let's go. But when you're in the corporate world, I don't think it translates. I don't think it translates.
Yeah. To that end, what would you say, Christian, as you work with, more brands in and outside of luxury goods, your career is continuing to evolve. You're evolving as a human. Like, what's maybe one or two things that you've seen in your own personal evolution, whether that's personally or as a business owner over the last few years? Like, how are you maybe taking a different approach or doing things different today than you were, a few years ago when it was guns blazing?
What I'm just starting to do now, and you and I can have a long conversation about this at a later time, but I'm just starting, and I've always done it a little bit, but not to a meaningful tectonic way, right? I'm just starting to find the best application for a given product. Even when the product is great, I've spent using it on a function that wasn't necessarily the best, right? We're moving into sales training now for a lot of our work, as opposed to, direct retail marketing, because when we're bidding on retail, marketing gigs, it's a different situation. It's a different situation. Now, I'm talking about watches specifically. Now, if we are billing or pitching as the sort of people that can fix your entire client-facing retail, system, we are totally unique. We are totally unique. And it's the same product. It's the same storytelling. It's the same everything.
Yeah.
But it's a better application. And I'm just realizing that in the last 6 months. So it's, that's part of it, right? It's part of growing up.
How about you personally? What's evolved over the last 2 years?
You cut out an audio.
Oh, you there? Can you hear me? Christian, can you hear me?
No, I can't.
Oh, interesting. Okay. We lost Christian here just for a moment. I think he's probably going to either come back on or maybe jump out and come back in. We'll try to bring him back here in a minute. This is just one of those things that happens when we go live. We're talking to Christian Zeron. He is the founder of LMFNY. We're talking about storytelling, the impact of storytelling has on brand and building brand. And we're going to see if we can bring him back in here. Christian, can you hear?
I can. You got me?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think it was just a little bit of a hiccup. Man, and I was just about to have my Oprah moment. I was going to go in for like the real deep question. I thought you were maybe avoiding it.
No.
So we're just talking about, the evolution of the way that you do business, the evolution of how you're crafting LMF. Yeah. It sounds like you're getting a lot more focused and refined with your offerings, taking less of a one size fits all approach and really understanding the marketplace. I'm curious, how have you personally evolved over the last few years? Because you've seen a lot of opportunity come your way.
Yeah. Again, I'm a young guy. I'm 27. So, anyone that experiences any bit of success at a young age, that's dangerous. I definitely lived a little bit fast, and I definitely, like any young guy, and I don't regret it because you learn a lot, but at 27, at the old age of 27, I definitely, I'm really just enjoying everything more. Everything. I'm not looking for the next thing. I'm always looking for the next business, whatever. But even in my daily routine, there's no jittery anxiety. There's no where are we going tonight? All of that. It's a vibe. It really is. I've just really mellowed, and I know that doesn't seem maybe that way in an interview because I'm so excited to be here. But no, man. I've become an old man. I was always a little old man, but I've definitely mellowed out a lot at work and in my personal life, and it's really been nice. It's been nice. Again, I was 23, 24, with a successful retail company, that's tough. It's a weird thing.
Sure.
That's a weird life, It's a weird life.
Yeah.
And I know my parents were freaked out about it too, for sure. They were like, how do we help him? How do we help him navigate, into adulthood seamlessly without any real, problem, like every parent. But it was unique. It was unique.
Well, one of the things that I've had the privilege of being a friend, through the last 3 or 4 years as you've grown and developed, and I think one of the things that I admire most about you, even at the young age of 27, is that ever since you started Theo and Harris and now LMF, you have such a sense of self-awareness of what works, like the best attributes of you that you can provide, and you've built businesses around that. And so many of us entrepreneurs, we maybe identify a market opportunity and we then step in and pretend that we've got the skills or the capabilities to do it, but really you've done such a good job of just tapping into a real intrinsic skill that you have for storytelling. And you haven't played to be anything bigger or better than that in some cases. And you've built 2 wonderful businesses around it.
Totally. That's huge. I think that self-reflection and humility, to know, and for all entrepreneurs, right? What are my skills? What are the parameters of my skills? Let's be honest with ourselves. You're not a genie, and it's easy to feel that way sometimes, right? Because people are looking at you for answers. It's very easy to my dad always says to buy your own bullshit, right? It's very easy to fall into that,
Yep.
you know, but no, I mean, I know this sounds like the most like, you know, I always hate even saying it. It sounds so fake humility, but I look at the guys that I work with, the men and women that I work with, oftentimes, and I'm almost embarrassed that they're so talented creatively. And I'm a good writer, but I almost feel like inadequate so often. I'm like, wow, what you just did is beautiful. I've never made anything beautiful like that. That's beautiful. And I put them on a pedestal all the time, you know, to them as well as a form of motivation, I suppose. But I can't tell you how many times in a month I'm like envious, truly, of the people around me. And I just say like, okay, yeah, I'm not that talented in the grand scheme. Like I have an ability to identify how to tell stories that move people to action. That is a very valuable skill, right? In the market, it's very valuable. But I don't find it to be, maybe because it's my skill, but I don't find it to be the coolest or the most, poetic or maybe by definition it's poetic, but I don't know. I'm often very, you know, self-reflective and, you know, I often find myself to be the weakest link, you know, in a room of creatives. I'm just so like amazed by them, you know?
It's funny. I feel the same way, you know, as much as in so many ways I'm the face of our brand and our communications platforms. We now get a chance to work with a handful of creators and a few particularly on our team that I am just in absolute awe of. It almost makes you think like if it were really just me and my voice and my ego with no way to package it up in a meaningful story that has a true start, beginning, and an end, like what would there be? You know, I'm in constant awe of people that are able to bring life to the concepts and bring life to the strategy that we bring our clients. And it sounds like it's the same for you. But again, I think your self-awareness is one of your superpowers. And it's been incredible to see you evolve over the last few years and your businesses as well. I guess I have maybe one more question for you as we kind of look up and out into the future of, let's call it storytelling and brand storytelling. And in the creator economy, there's been a lot of talk about new technologies, disruption, and AI taking over, you know, our ability to kind of tell stories. Are we going to be the people telling stories? Are new technologies going to be telling stories? You know, how do you see storytelling as it pertains to working with brands evolving over the years? Or are you just really dead set focused on those intrinsic storytelling qualities that will never be replaced by any type of new, you know, technology or technique?
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, honestly, I have no idea. I have no idea the impact of AI on storytelling. I have no idea. I am hyper aware constantly of the impact of having a meaningful network, a network of people that trust your ability to storytell, a network of people that will refer, a network of people that will not. They're not early adopters. They're not running away, right? They're going to stay here with an ad man. You know, I believe in that. That being said, I'm also running. You know, it's a great ad firm. We're a large small business, but we are a small business, and you know, I don't intend on being large enough for the impact of AI to ruin my day. I think I will be. I will be living on some Italian farm when that happens. You know, I mean, I think that's probably closer to reality. Yeah.
I love that. And again, that's a little bit of the perspective that you kind of have to have as a small business owner at the end of the day. Like we can't be waking up every day worried about what new disruptions or new technologies. And also, let's be honest, you know, over the last 150 years, there have been a lot of new disruptive technologies that have come into our space, business, marketing, brand, the internet being one of them, right? That that people were touting to be the grand disruptor, you know, the replacement for human capital. AI is not going to be the first. It won't. It just won't. At the end of the day, we are all humans. We are all networks of humans, and those stories live within those networks of humans. And I would say even more practically or tactically, as I do see a lot of content out there about specifically AI and how it can kind of, it can replace employees and you can run a small business leveraging AI and all of this stuff. I think at the end of the day, as we head in more of that direction, it's going to make great human storytelling even that more premium. It really is. It's going to be the same with art, the same with music. As we can produce and reproduce it quicker, the original stuff, the good stuff, is going to be at much more of a premium. And I'm more of a original good stuff type of guy.
Totally. I completely agree with you. We have to remain hopeful that people can tell the difference. When I say people, I mean people en masse, right? Which I'm not always optimistic about, right? I made a dig earlier on in the video about throwing a Super 8 filter over something and it's art, and it's not. I can sit down with you and have a 2-hour conversation about why certain ads don't work, why they're bad. Even though showing it to an average person, they may find it great. It's beautiful, right? It's beautiful. Yeah. Well, beauty is something, but it is not everything, right? There needs to be a function here, right? Like we say in our brand speak, right? We sell solutions, right? It's not one tactic, right? It's multifaceted. It's a multifaceted approach. I mean, our goal is not to be beautiful. Beauty is one of the many tools we use to sell your product, right? Or whatever it may be, right? It's one of the many tools. But folks can be tricked, and I see marketing directors very often not be as discerning as I would hope that they would be. So I think that there will be players that will make hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising leveraging AI. I believe that. I just won't be one of them, I suppose. I mean, that's right. I mean, it's tough.
100%. What okay, we'll end things here with just a quick lightning round, if you don't mind. I'm going to ask you a couple kind of hot seat questions real quick. What are you listening to, reading to, geeking out about today?
Good question. I actually just listened to a great interview with a man who spent the summer before. It's bizarre. It's actually bizarre. Total word vomit here. He spent the summer with Lee Harvey Oswald before he killed JFK. Oh, wow. Yeah, it was really fascinating. The man waited 60 years to tell his story, and it was really fascinating. And I'm not I'm not a conspiracy. I didn't look into Oswald. I don't really know anything about it, but it was so interesting hearing this, relatively speaking, underwhelming, story about such a historically important figure. It was such a human story. There was no grand reveal. There's no new information we didn't understand before. But listening to a man just tell a story about a summer he spent with someone that went on to do something so important to history was fascinating. That was just storytelling. I got off that way. It was cool.
I love that. Where is that? Where can we find that?
It was on the Hoover Institute. Uncommon Knowledge is the podcast. Take a look.
Okay. Cool. Which character in Succession do you relate to most? And you have to pick one.
I'm Cousin Greg, 100%.
Are you really?
I think about it, right? I'm the nobody from nowhere that learned how to get mean very quickly and is getting there, right? That's it. I mean, that's it.
I mean, you talk about just incredible storytelling. I don't know if you've been. Yeah, I'm sure you're caught up in watching, but I mean, it's absolutely incredible. The relatability, the familial kind of relationships, and the storytelling is just something else. I hope that show literally never ends. Although I do think we're one episode from it ending. Tell us, and maybe this isn't a hot seat question, but yes or no, Sunday sauce is still happening at the Zeron house.
Absolutely. I would sooner die.
This is every Sunday. Your family gets together and you cook and you sit and you have somewhere between 3 to 6 hour meals.
Yeah. Basically, we sit down at noon and nothing's happening. No one's going anywhere until about 6. And frankly, if Rolly gives me the eyes and wants to have a drink after dinner, we're gonna. I mean, a cocktail. We're gonna stay there until whenever the conversation gets tired. Which it never does.
Yeah, so, I had the privilege of attending one of these illustrious events, and I don't think I've ever sat at a kitchen table longer. I think I was sitting in between a couple of people, and I was like embarrassed to say I needed to get up, so I just I held it for like 6.5 hours. I just didn't want to disrupt anything that was happening there.
It's great. It's great, and
it was a wonderful experience.
can't wait to continue that tradition, with a family of my own someday.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What are you looking forward to most this summer?
I'm traveling a lot, man.
Yeah.
We just closed a freaking awesome engagement in mid-June. So I'm going to Milan for a week to execute that engagement. And then I think I'm going to take a little road trip with some friends from there down to a little, they rented a villa in Puglia. So yeah, they invited me. So I'm going to be doing that. So, and that'll be a nice retreat. Oh, and then I'm sorry, I get back the 4th, I get back the 3rd of July, and I leave the 6th for Germany. So I'm, yeah.
So, just laying around the house, not doing much. That's incredible. And you just started a new version of your podcast called The Zero. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So again, you just taste new things, right? You're always looking to, you're never too old to continue to taste, I never mistake a hobby for a viable business opportunity. Never, right? My dad taught me that very, very young. That being said, there are some very small business opportunities, meaning monetarily, right? That could over 5 years, right? Over 8 years, if you've got it streamlined enough where it's really not taking up any of your resources, that are great to explore. And I think building a subscription community is fascinating. I'm just fascinated by the idea. I do not intend for this to be very profitable, right? It will be the least profitable of my ventures. But I think in a more real way, in a larger way, what valuable data to have, right? How valuable is it to know these are my largest followers. These are my biggest fans. The people that actually put their credit card down, not to buy a watch, not to buy a strap, not to sell it, but to listen to a podcast every week, and put their money behind it. It's interesting to me. It's just interesting. So some people think it's a money play. It's the furthest thing from a money play.
Not at all.
Strictly experimental.
Well, and ultimately, I mean, you have 100K plus followers on YouTube. At some point, you almost have a responsibility of creating smaller, more intimate communities within that, because that's how you started, right? Like, you didn't start with 100K subscribers. So now it's like, this is just an opportunity to partition off a portion of your community that has a little bit more access and a little bit more intimacy with the brand.
100%. I'm even thinking about rolling out, maybe, once a quarter or something, allowing the upper tier members to hop on a FaceTime. I don't know. I'm just interested in it. And if you asked me that question 3 years ago, I would have said, burn my phone. I don't want any calls. I don't want anyone talking to me, because my phone was just obviously like your phone, right? It's just so many people, so much going on. And it's funny because now I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying, okay, there's a lot of garbage, but how can I sift out the gems, right? Not just people. I just conversation, a gem of a conversation, a gem of a connection. Like we talked about before, I mean, making friends. I've been so zeroed in on work for the last 8 years that I told you before, I made like 3 friends in the last 8 years. Right? I'm not the most popular guy in the world, and because I didn't prioritize nurturing relationships, right? So I just focused on work, So now I'm like, okay, this is fascinating. Like, maybe we start to nurture relationships. Maybe that's a genius idea, And it's obviously so simple and it's so silly, but I think that 40-year-old Christian will be glad that I did this. I think.
Yes. I love that. That. Well, Christian, it's been so great having you on the show. We so appreciate your time. We know how, busy and expanding your career and your life have become,
we're all busy. We're all busy.
Certain things just haven't changed about you, your authenticity, your willingness to invest in relationships around you. And I'm so glad that I'm one of those. And I am just incredibly inspired by the growth and the progression of what you're doing, both in and outside of career. So happy to call you a friend, and thank you for being a part of the community.
Love you, my man. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining this episode of Navigating Now. Had a wonderful time with Christian catching up. Every week we go live to all social media channels, including LinkedIn Live. Thursdays at 3:00. You can find this episode and previous episodes at thoughteum.com/live. We will be here next week with a new leader and a new leadership topic that matters to you all. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of the week and a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.